feeling like I was going to die. At any point, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to die. And it wasn't by a car accident. It wasn't by, the sort of things that would naturally occur. Every day I woke up, I knew that HIV was going to take me out. Because I was ignorant, I didn't really know. And I didn't have a support network to really tell me and really, I guess, lean on during those times. And I remember talking to a friend who he had disclosed his status to me, and I was talking to him in the third person about a friend who was HIV positive and how he was so afraid to go to the doctor and didn't know what he was going to do with himself. And my friend gingerly told me, he said, "Well, tell your friend, whoever he might be, that HIV won't kill him, but fear will."
So I really wanted to start off this conversation just by getting a temperature in the room as to what everybody's religious and spiritual experiences have been in the past.
So for me, my religious experience has been very interesting. So I've grown up in a Baptist church and literally have been a member of the same church all of my life. Being in that church, I obtained leadership roles and kind of was elevated in leadership. And one day I got a call to come to a meeting at a house. And when I got to the meeting at the house, a folder was passed to me like Mission Impossible, and when I opened it, it was my Adam for Adam profile. My
That's
pastor,
messy.
right? It was very messy, and for me, it's very traumatic. It's still traumatic when I talk about it. Almost 15 years later, my pastor was called to the house, so I was forced to come out to my pastor. And also that same summer, I was diagnosed with HIV. So that whole experience still lives in me today, and I eventually stepped down from leadership, kind of going back and forth with presenting myself at the church and bringing my whole self to the church.
I grew up in the Church of Christ, and the Church of Christ believes that the only way to heaven is through the Church of Christ. From that space, it just created this idea that I'm broken. I am so tremendously broken, and then I had to add to that my issues around my sexuality, and then add to that sexual trauma that happened in the church often. And I just became so distant from whatever that thing out there is that we call God, that I felt like I'm never going to get it right. So I ended up running away from everything that even resembled faith or spirituality, and that consequented in me making a whole bunch of terrible decisions for myself. STD diagnosis, a whole bunch of sexual problems, all that.
I actually sang in church,
No shit.
but I was never a church queen. I could not sort of wrap my head around church as a establishment, and I couldn't really understand Christianity as a practice. And so I'm curious, is inclusion, do you feel included in your church and wherever you sort of go worship?
There's a church in Atlanta that is very LGBT inclusive, and I've gone there a couple of times and I've been wowed at how inclusive they are of all different types of people. But in general, I would say that walking into a church and being the black gay that has on a coral blazer a coral polo, it's just like the looks, the stares, it's very clear some things don't even have to be said. It's understood that you are an outsider, you are an outlier, and we don't really want you here.
I would say that I've been fortunate enough to find the First Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem, New York. And it's a space where I am challenged each Sunday and each Tuesday to come as my full self into that space.
Challenged in a good way.
In a good way, as it's to say, for you not to be authentically yourself in this space is actually to be a breach upon like the sort of covenant that we share here. And so with that being said, I've been able to also interface with the pastor a lot and do work around HIV and AIDS. For example, we do distribute condoms at my church. We also have lists, a place where you can go get tested at my church. And also we have every first Sunday in December and also every first Sunday in February, our Imani ministry passes the communion trays along with teaching sexuality in the Black church courses at my church. So it's a radical space of inclusion.
I went to my father's church for Father's Day. He invited me, and I was wearing a short set, blazer, matching shorts. And I walked in the sanctuary. The minister was preaching, and so I walked in and I found my seat. He saw me because I was standing right in front of him. And amidst his sermon, he talks about how we have lost our traditional holy values by wearing these, because he saw a fashion show with men wearing a suit with short pants. And I felt, not only did I feel excluded because I am the gay guy, but then on top of that, I am specifically excluded on how I express who I am in my fashion, in how I walk, and how I talk, that just added this layer of bullshit to church that just never really needed to be there.
Thank you for saying that word. I just don't. I'm challenged if you can't tell. And I'm challenged by why we patronize establishments that fundamentally like dehumanize or devalue who we are, and then you compound it with so many of the other things that we go through in our life, like HIV, AIDS, whatever, da 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 da. And I mean, like, the church is not stepping up to its appropriate plate in many instances.
You know, it gets to a certain point to where we have to ask ourselves if this is a place. So let's just say, for instance, in the South, this is really kind of like the nexus of the Black experience in the South. So people are going to Bible study on Wednesdays. They're maybe going to a fish fry on Friday. Saturday, they're at choir practice, and on Sunday, they're in Sunday school and on church. Why is this not the opportunity or the space that our pastors are saying, this is what's going on as it relates to HIV and AIDS within our community. This is what's going on in the Black gay community. Why are people not talking about these things? Why are pastors in general not talking about these things en masse? And why are we not forcing them to kind of talk about these things? Because at the end of the day, if we're going to put our coin into the plate that they pass around to help sustain this institution that is not feeding us, then maybe we need to leave. Maybe we need to go elsewhere. Or maybe we need to demand that they speak to our experiences and the things that are affecting us in our community.
For me, I went to a church that addressed HIV and AIDS. My first time hearing someone talk about HIV and AIDS was across the pulpit, where my pastor invited a local activist to come and talk about it. We've had a Faith and AIDS conference where we mobilized the faith community in Memphis to talk about HIV and AIDS to help them start HIV and AIDS ministries. I, for one, believe that the church has a role in, erasing stigma across the pulpit, and I think that plays into people linking into care, staying into care, and becoming virally suppressed.
So we've talked about this from a very Judeo-Christian standpoint, and as I assume many of you are or have been church queens at some point. There's a variety of other, religions and practices. And so have you tried something else on, or are you sort of set?
Now I'm just kind of like, well, I live my life by the golden rule. I guess you would consider me an agnostic. Maybe there's something that exists. Maybe there's not. I don't know what'll happen when I die. That's not for me to determine or to try to decide. But I do know that I try to put positive energy into the earth, and I try to treat people the way that I would like to be treated. And after that, there's really nothing else that I can do.
For me, I still rely on my Christian beliefs, and really as I become older, the mindset of having to go to church every Sunday, I really don't believe that. While I'm a person that likes to attend church, I don't put those beliefs on other people that you always have to be in church to get to heaven.
Yeah, and I'm a person, I like to think that I'm ever evolving, so where I am right now, I won't probably be here at the same place next week or even next year, hopefully. And that is, for me, I've had this radical understanding that God is in all spaces. God is everywhere. In my bedroom, God is in the car, in the church. There's some place God is not.
There are several other religions that I have tasted and dabbled in, but the idea that has always remained true for me, now that I am confident enough to create my own definition of faith, is that the universal energy force that some people call God is what drives me, and that my purpose on this planet is just to do whatever Jay, with the funny name, is here to do, and your purpose is yours. And so I really don't have to make any judgments or opinions about your walk, because if you think it's crap, then have at it.
So can we
Holding
cheer
pastors accountable is another can of worms.
Cheers.
To that.
Cheers.